on the American Dream Business Roundtable. And it's funny, you were talking about driving during the break, and I've watched how the English, we call ourselves the English, today have no courtesy, no manners, are texting, are talking, are doing everything but driving.
Yeah.
And it's scary. Tell me, when you go to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, they are driving buggies, they're driving cars, the Mennonites drive cars. Are they very polite in the way they drive, and are they good at what they do?
I'm embarrassed to answer the question this way. I was driving in that area, the English guy, and I got pulled over because I was texting, and I got a ticket in Pennsylvania. I actually received a ticket. But the thing that I observe is in the behavior or the attitude is it tends to be much more character-centric. In other words, they're going to yield. They're going to allow you to go first. They're gentlemen in most regards, especially in their driving. And I think they have to be, because having a buggy, it moves a whole lot slower than the automobiles. And of course, we've got to go around them. But it is in their, it really is in their, how they actually present themselves, and they'll actually wait for you to go, and you'll go first. And that is their whole attitude, pretty universally in the community that I've observed.
Let's talk about the difference between what a Mennonite is and what an Amish is, and the differences in, they drive, one drives, the other one drives a buggy. Do the Mennonites have electricity?
Yes, they do.
Okay. The Amish don't.
They do.
They do?
Some do, with solar panels and...
Well,
and wind power?
I have a property that John and Sally Lapp developed in front of me, and they built Psalm 23, a virtual walkthrough. And up on this area, they built a cabin, and they allowed me to stay in their cabin.
Oh, really?
Every time I came, that was my hibernation place.
Right.
And I would go up there, and it was solar powered. It had a solar powered panel. It had electricity inside for me. And I actually did training in this cabin with some of the Amish people, because they're very private. They don't want just anyone in their world, and they don't just trust anybody. And also, probably even more importantly, is I had to get permission from their bishop to actually work with certain groups of people.
Really?
I had to actually go and speak to the bishop, let him know who I was, what I was doing, and make sure I had his permission to work with this married couple.
If that wasn't clear, when I got involved in the pizza parlor thing, there's no way I could have gotten even through the door.
Yeah.
If William hadn't introduced me and brought me through the door. They would not let me, as an English person, to help them with anything, no matter how much I tried to convince them that I could solve their problems.
And that's really very true of the Hasidic Jew.
Yeah.
And very Orthodox group of people. I worked in a school in Indian Hill for a summer program. And what I would do for teaching them cooking or pet responsibility or whatever, he had to go through the rabbi.
Yeah.
And if I did anything with food, everything had to be kosher.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I had to convert everything, which was totally different. But they accepted me, which was really unusual.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it worked. But I did I had to get to know them and understand the way they worked and their socialization and everything else, and what I could do and what I couldn't do.
Well, it's about, ultimately, it's about protocol.
Right.
And I've been raised, and my business practices, I've been raised with a lot of Jewish mentors.
Right, me too.
So that's helped me, because I understand that they're investment minded. They invest in people, and I'll give you an example. Stanley Schrock is a great businessman in his community. I had another individual, same name, Stanley. Pollock, he was a Jewish guy in the textile business. And he brought me into his home and he taught me landscaping. And it was so annoying to me because he had me go and go to every single courtyard and identify all the dead plants. And I'm like, why does this guy want to waste my time here? And then he calls me and he says, okay, now that you've identified that plants are dead, now can you give me a price? And he's negotiating, right? And that project actually started out, I think it was a large project. It was like $8,000. It actually escalated to about $10,000 a month, every month consistently, because he continued to improve the property, hence improving the real estate value. And he was teaching me business at the very principal centers. If you provide value, right?
You're sounding like one of those Karate Kid movies where there's no connection between it doesn't seem like there's a connection between what you're doing and the ultimate goal, but ultimately they all come together.
It drove me crazy because I'm sitting there listening to this guy getting angry as a young man that he's forcing me to go through and do this survey.
Well, you want to hear something really wild? I used to work for the children's home.
Yeah.
And I was a business development person for them, and I had to go out and beg for stuff for the nonprofit, right? So my boss said to me, I want you to call this guy that owns a landscaping company because they do a lot of the stuff on all of our properties along with our homes for the kids. I would like you to ask him to give me all of the plants for all of the whole property as a gift.
Wow.
Okay? So I called the guy. He said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I tell you what I'm going to do.
Right.
If you do this, I'll give you this. Okay? And so the request was to call a friend of his that was Jewish, a doctor, who needed a PR person for his children's charity.
Right.
And he wanted me to do it for free. Right?
Yeah.
Well, that became one of the greatest relationships I ever had on earth.
Wow.
Which was he made clocks for kids in hospitals.
Oh, wow.
So and then he became my own doctor as well, which made it even more fun.
Yeah.
And we laugh about that today. I did get all of the plans for the whole project, but it really taught me a lesson. You know, he said, I want you to call this guy and give him this line, because they used to meet every week for lunch or dinner, right?
Yeah.
These 5 guys.
Yeah.
And it was something that they used to do with each other. And if I used this one line, the doctor would come to the telephone from his office if he wasn't in an emergency situation. And so I said, really? He said, really. So I made the call, used the line. The doctor came right to the phone.
Yeah.
And I said, I was told to tell you this, and I'm Kathryn Raaker. And he called his friend, and we got the plants.
You know, what you're sharing is so profound, and it makes a case for ultimately relationship equity. It makes a case for that because what you did is you followed the protocol that you were told, and you received the benefit or reward. Well, and that's the thing, in any culture, whether it's the Jewish culture, the Amish, the Mennonite, and the English, is often people won't share with you when you've broken protocol.
That's true. Well, I think I view it in another way and suggest that she's pointing out the value, if you will, of offering yourself up and without any desire or reward that is visible there, without the negotiating some kind of a deal. She went into that pretty much blind, and ended up with one of the best, by her own admission, one of the best relationships of her life. And I think a lot of us can learn from that. That way too often, we are trying to figure out, well, what do we get out of it? Why should I do this for you? What do I get out of it? And instead of recognizing the need and just donating it.
You're talking a language, serving leaders, being a leader that is serving and serving first, and you gave of yourself with a pure heart, and you received the reward. And And I see more of that happening right now in America, especially with the transition that needs to happen, is those leaders who really understand what you just shared. And I know that you're sincere because you've helped me with my business. In fact, maybe you don't want to make this public, but you actually canceled a debt that I owed you. You said, William, don't worry about that. I'm going to make that go away. And I thought to myself, who does that today? In business, who helps people to that degree? And it touched me so deeply because it was such a pure gift. I don't even think you even remember doing it, honestly. But I am just so appreciative because that's what it means to build equity relation. And here we are at the Roundtable.
That's right. And on that note, we need to take a short break. And I'm sorry we have to do it right now, but William, give your website, please.
It is Portacle, P-O-R-T-A-C-L-E, portacle.com.
And Greg?
How about the probizservices.com this time? P-R-O-B-I-Z services.com.
And we'll be right back on the American Dream Business Roundtable.